Finding cooking for one a total drag? You are listening to the right video. I'm Andrea Hall-Wagner, registered dietitian and CEO of Healthstand Nutrition. And today I'm going to be tackling a common issue that we hear from many of our clients. And I've heard from some of you in our monthly our weekly newsletter that comes out that you got questions about cooking for one. And so what I want to cover on this video is 3 key strategies that if you're cooking solo, trying to sort of figure out what can help you move through that a little bit easier, give you some really practical tips to move forward with that. So that's what we're going to cover on this video. So here's some of the things that we hear from our clients in our practice. They'll say, I toss out a lot of food, and I just find I don't put in the effort because it's just me. Might be one of the things we hear. So if you can relate to that, I'd love to know in the comments if this is you. It's just like, man, I keep tossing out fresh things. I can't get through them, or I'm just not that motivated to cook because it's just me. One of the other comments we often hear is, I'm just eating cereal for dinner, or I'm just quickly grabbing popcorn or snacks, and I'm really not getting the nutrition that I know that I actually need. So we often find many of our clients are struggling either with their weight, their health, want to eat better. However, maybe things like vegetables or getting enough protein might be challenges, because if you're just kind of grazing and snacking on things, those are sometimes the things that fall short in people's diets. So if that's you, let me know in the comments. Very curious to find out what your biggest challenge is when it comes to cooking for one. Let me know there. One of the other things that we often hear is that just recipes are too big. I don't want to eat the same boring leftovers over and over. They're not designed for a single person or just cooking for one if you've got maybe a spouse or a partner that works out of town. So we hear you on that. So we are definitely going to tackle how to navigate those common issues with respect to cooking for one. So first tip I want to give you is what I call divide and conquer. And so this one doesn't have anything to do with developing any significant grocery shopping skills or advanced meal planning skills. What I want you to do is thinking about getting social here. Because what I know, when we eat together, food is just a heck of a lot more fun. We are social beings. We are meant to connect. And if cooking for one is feeling like a drag, what I want you to consider doing is booking some sort of a date once a week with another fellow single person that might be in the same boat, that's feeling like, man, this cooking thing is not so fun. I like to even do that as a married person. We've got friends that just get together, and instead of getting together and going out for dinner, we get together and we cook together and share a really beautiful meal. And so I'd encourage you to think about, who do you know that might be in the same situation that would be super pumped to get together and do this together once a week. That's all you got to do to just get the ball rolling. The other way you can kind of think about this divide and conquer tip that I'm going through here is you could consider once a month hosting or putting together a social group of just a handful of a couple of people that might be interested on either, let's say, a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, getting together for a food prep group. And what you might do here is you could, in advance as a group, vote on a couple of different recipe ideas, things that you might want to make all together, or you could have a vote about, let's say you've got 3 friends coming over, pick 3 different recipes, everyone agrees, and each person's in charge of really shopping and bringing those ingredients, extra knives, cutting boards, whatever you might need, and just get together, put some music on, maybe have a glass of wine, whatever makes it fun and social, and put together those meals, because that way you've got 3 great meals prepped for your suppers for the week. So getting social, always way more fun. The other thing you could do, and I learned this tip actually through a client of mine in a corporate environment where I was doing some speaking engagements, and what they ended up sharing with me is her and another colleague had decided lunch packing was such a drag that they decided to rotate packing lunches for one another. So if you got a colleague at work, maybe both of you like similar styles of food, what is awesome about this particular strategy is that you've got some layered accountability built into the mix, because sometimes it's a drag cooking just for yourself, but if you've got another person that you know you need to bring lunch for, there's a little more added motivation to get the job done and put in a little bit extra effort than maybe if it was just for you. So we know from habit formation and accountability-based research, when we've got other people involved in a social setting or in a, I need to take care of not only myself, but somebody else, and somebody else knows about this goal that I've set, we know you are going to have a better chance of actually succeeding. So I love that one. The other thing you can do on this whole divide and conquer tip that I'm sharing is get together for a recipe share once a month. And in this situation, you're not necessarily getting together and cooking together, but you might have 4 friends. Everyone, again, I would vote on the recipes that everyone's committed to doing, just so everyone enjoys the food that you're about to share. Vote on what they are. Each person independently goes about, makes that food, and you just get together and you socialize and you literally just food share. Everyone leaves with little Ziploc bags of their frozen meals or a container of their fresh food, whatever works for you as friends. Again, divide and conquer as a single person, definitely way more fun. Second tip I want to share here with respect to sort of my nutrition survival guide for cooking solo is I want you to think big but buy small. And so what I mean by this is sometimes, yeah, you can buy cheaper things when they're in larger quantities. And sometimes, yes, you know that there's a sale, but maybe the volume just isn't something that you're going to be able to get through when it's just you. Or maybe sometimes the convenience option that's pre-chopped and ready to go, for example, some of your stir-fry veggies or sliced, yams or spiralized zucchini noodles, whatever it might be that's already prepped and ready for you. Yeah, there's a little extra cost there, but for a single person, that cost is often going to be really helpful. Again, and oftentimes it means you're probably going to throw out less food because those convenience packs tend not to be in huge volumes. So the other thing I would have to say about this think big but buy small type of strategy is whenever you buy something that might be hindering on just too much volume of food for what you can reasonably get through as a single person, I'd like you to have what I call the midpoint plan. So let me give you an example. If you buy a bag of apples, decent deal, it felt like, yeah, I can probably get through them. What I want you to think about is, okay, if there's 12 apples in this bag, by the time you get to 6, I want you to have a midpoint plan on how you're going to get through the other 6 so that you're just not tossing out unnecessary bags of food. So at that point, you might decide to peel, slice, and put them in the freezer for making muffins, or you might slice them all up and make an apple crisp and have friends over on Sunday night to enjoy with you. Or you might make some applesauce, lots of different ways to use up that inventory. But having a midpoint plan can be a really good thing. Let me give you another example. Say you buy a big container of grapes, but you haven't been able to get through them. What you might do, just wash them all up, throw them on little bamboo skewers, and pop them into the freezer for what I call grapesicles. On a day you need a healthy snack, they're ready to go. And again, we haven't ended up throwing out that extra food that you couldn't get through. Berries, always easy. You can wash them, toss them into the freezer for smoothies or tossing into oatmeal or yogurt parfaits, put them into pancakes. Lots of easy ways to do that. With something like red peppers, sometimes they come in bags that are just too big for a single person to get through. So again, you might just spend a little bit more and buy one at a time so you know you can get through it. Or if you want to get a bag, what you might end up finding is midway through at that midpoint, you might want to slice them all up. I would either, if you have a barbecue or an oven, literally prepare them, brush them with a little bit of olive oil, and roast them into the oven. And those roasted peppers you can pop right into the freezer and really enjoy them in soups, in scrambled eggs, in pizzas, and they freeze fantastic. So we do lots of roasted peppers at our house as well. Something like spinach, which we know turns really quickly. Again, if you buy a container of spinach but you can't get through it, don't forget you can eat spinach wilted. And some of you might think, I am not eating wilted spinach, Andrea. It's not that bad if you put a little bit of butter and some salt on there. You're probably going to find it's better than you think. But if that still is like no-go, again, I would still cook it up. And then consider adding that just a little by little in either things like your pasta tomato sauces, your egg frittatas, on top of pizzas, in lasagnas. They just sort of sneak in there and add that extra good green stuff. It means you're not throwing out spinach, so a good way to use that up. So if you need a little bit more data on how long does food last, because often our single clients wonder, is the expiry date like a no-go zone? You can go into a website called stilltasty.com and you can look up pretty much how long stuff lasts. If you're really curious about just about any food, remember that the expiry date doesn't necessarily mean that you can't eat it after that. It's just sort of a recommended time when the food is going to be at its peak. So check out that website if you need a little bit more advice on that. Okay, third thing I want to talk about here when we're talking about success tips for cooking solo is what I call the cook once, eat twice or more strategy. And so anyone can use this regardless. We use a lot of this type of strategy in our household as a family, but single people, this one is definitely a good one. And we're going to talk more about things than just simply eating the same boring leftover meal over and over, because I know some of you are not going to enjoy that. I don't know if I would either. So cook once, eat twice. Lots of different ways to go about it. But the first thing I'd ask you to think about is, what is my food personality like? Your food personality is how often you like shopping. It's how often you enjoy cooking. It's also how much time you either want to spend in the kitchen or minimize cooking, and how much variety you like day to day. Some people don't mind eating more repetitive types of meals. Other people are total foodies and they want to have different stuff all the time. So think about who you are from a food personality perspective. And as I go through how to utilize the cook once, eat twice strategy, you'll be able to see, okay, which ones are going to resonate best with me. So the first piece of this is putting a freezer ingredient in place. And some of you I know have really tiny freezers. For those of you that live in apartments or just don't have a lot of fridge space, your best strategy here is going to be using Ziploc bags so you can see them and they stack much easier in small freezer spaces. For those of you that got oodles of freezers, maybe you got an extra one, then yes, the greener way to go is going to be a container. But I do find most single people do their best when we're talking about putting stuff in bags they can see and that are stackable. And what I want you to think about as a freezer ingredient is not necessarily freezing the entire meal. One of the things that works great is if you cook up a pot of rice or quinoa or barley or orzo, those little tiny little pastas. Maybe you cook up a risotto. The recipe is going to be designed for 4, 6, 8 people. And what is best for a single person to do, because it's a drag to have to cook those all the time, is put them either in little snack-sized Ziploc bags or containers and pop those into the freezer in single servings that you would use. Or Rochelle Cavalon, one of the dietitians at our office here, what she does for her family is she freezes things like rice in little muffin tins or quinoa or barley. All of them work well. Just grease your muffin tins, pack them in firmly once you've got the cooked rice or quinoa, whatever you're making from a grain perspective. Pop them right in there, freeze the whole muffin tin, and then of course when things are frozen you can pop them out and put those in a container. And that works really good, so you can utilize just a real basic ingredient and then be able to, cook up a stir fry pretty easily when you know part of that meal is already done. So that's one strategy we use a lot with our clients here in the planning perspective. And then you might also think about what you can do from other components that freeze really well. But again, rather than freezing the entire meal, think about, okay, rather than just freezing single chicken breasts, for example, what you might do is freeze them pre-marinated or freeze them pre-seasoned. So you've got, chicken Slovakia, and then you've got Italian seasonings, and then you've got some in barbecue sauce. So that step is already removed for you, because I know cooking for one can be a drag. So anything you can do a little ahead to kind of take one little step out often makes a huge difference for people. And I would definitely consider buying, again, some of the stuff that's already pre-sliced for you, whether that's stewing beef or strips of pork loin or strips of chicken that's already ready to go for you. That can really help just to overcome that extra barrier that it's like, oh, now I got to thaw it, and then I got to chop it, and then the other part of the meal needs to get made. Utilize some of those convenience options that are still really nutritious for you. And then, of course, don't forget about some of those super fast grab-and-go options in the protein department. These would be frozen edamame beans, your soybeans, fantastic for single people, really great for protein and iron. Frozen shrimp, fantastic again for protein and iron, really, really great. And then also your frozen veggies are as nutritious as fresh ones. So in our family, we eat lots of frozen peas because they're actually really quite delicious and super fast to put on the table if you need something in a fly. So I've got a couple people commenting here, so thank you for tuning in large. Can you elaborate on how to reuse rice after freezing? Okay, so what you can do, Mabel, from seeing your comment in here, is cook up the rice, freeze it, and then you can either pop it out early in the morning and toss it into the fridge. By the time you get home for work and you're ready to go, it'll be pretty much almost thawed, and then you can either heat it up in the microwave or you can pop it just in a non-stick style pan and just sort of saute it a little bit and bring it back to life. You could also pop it back into some boiling water and then just strain it would be the other way you can heat up your rice. So I hope that helps. Super, super convenient for single folks so that you're not constantly trying to figure out what can I eat other than cereal and toast for my grains. Lots of good options. Okay, so we talked about freezer ingredients, which is really, really great. I want to also talk about freezer meals. And freezer meals, what we're after here is putting the entire meal in the freezer. So this strategy might work better for you if you don't mind a little bit more repetition, or you are making a beautiful pot of chili, whether that's a meat-based one or a vegetarian bean-based one, or let's say you make up a big batch of a tomato meat sauce, or for vegetarians out there, I would say just substitute the meat with either a veggie ground round or canned lentils, work fantastic, or any kind of bean. Really, really great. Cook up a big batch of them. Again, consider freezing them in Ziploc so you can see what's in there and maximize space. Again, for those of you that got more freezer space and want to take the more environmental way, yes, you got lots of room for containers. Just make sure you use as many clear ones as possible. I find stuff gets lost in people's freezers, and spoken from experience as well. When we can see it and it's clearly labeled, way better. So some things that freeze really well for single folks: stews, chilies, pasta, meat sauces we talked about, both vegetarian and meat-based lasagnas, curries, like you think of a beautiful lentil-based curry or a butter chicken kind of recipe, casserole kind of things, also freeze really well. And if you've got some ideas for what freezes really well for you as a single person, I'd love to know in the comments if you've got any ideas or even some recipes that would be good to link to and share. Let us know. Always keen to hear what people's favorite ideas are when it comes to cooking for one. The other piece of this cook once, eat twice theme is using what I call connected meals with planned extras. You might be wondering, what the heck is that? You'll know what I'm talking about as I explore this. So if you're not a complete fan of eating the same meal over and over in leftovers, this concept works really well. So what we're after here is you intentionally cook more of one ingredient to then utilize that meal or utilize that ingredient in a different meal, either the next day or even in 2 days. Can be a good way to go about it. So let me give you an example. If tonight you were cooking chicken breast, rather than cooking one for yourself as a single person, what you might do is cook 2 or 3. Maybe you need a little bit for lunch the next day, but maybe if you season them fairly plain, let's say tonight you're having, I don't know, grilled chicken on the barbecue with, garlic and seasoning salt. Super chill, super easy seasoning with a little lemon in there, something like that. And you have that with your rice and some steamed veggies. What you might want to do is cook that second chicken breast even more plain, maybe just salt and pepper, because you know that the next night on day 2, you're going to be making chicken quesadillas, or maybe you're going to be putting it into on top of a flatbread and popping that in your toaster oven and making a delicious flatbed grilled chicken pesto pizza theme or something like that. So think about, again, cooking once, but being able to eat it twice, but in a different way so that it's more variety, saving you time in the kitchen, but just a little bit more fun for those of you that don't love leftovers and you've got a little bit more of a foodie kind of way about going about things. The other thing you can think about, let's say tonight, again, using that same example, is you made the chicken, the rice, the veggies theme, and you used the chicken on day 2 for quesadilla making. What you could do on day 3 is then utilize the leftover rice, and maybe you're making a shrimp stir fry that night. So lots of different ways to think about, utilizing leftovers in a very different way. So we call those planned extras at our office. And again, you might pop them into the freezer, but you might just be more of an eat fresh kind of person. Then that strategy of using those connected meals, using planned extras, is going to be your favorite option. So now I'd love to hear from you. Which one of these options, which one of these tips that I gave you is one that you can say, yes, I'm going to put that into action now. I always like to make things very actionable for people, where whenever you listen to anything or you read a piece of content by us, it's like, but what am I going to do? Am I going to try this think big, buy small concept with peppers this week when I see them on sale? Or am I going to try this divide and conquer thing and get something social into the works in my friends network? But love to know in the comments, did you like the strategy number 1, which was divide and conquer, all about finding a buddy to make things a little bit more fun? Did you like the strategy number 2, was think big but buy small, sometimes pay a little extra for convenience, sometimes really think about spending more on those much more downsized portions that don't stress you out that you're throwing away produce, and having a midpoint plan for anything you do buy in a slightly bigger way? Or was it number 3, the cook once, eat twice strategy, in a freezer ingredient, a freezer meal, or using that connected meal with planned extras that was for you? So love to know in the comments. We've got a few people chiming in here. Eat once, put one in the fridge for a day 2 or 2 away. Yes. Fantastic, Karen. And one in the freezer for later works well for me with different meals in between. Love it, love it. Charisse is saying, I hope I'm saying your name right, when portion meals, add sauces and spices before freezing. Yes, so key, so easy. You could line your whole counter up. Again, if you're using chicken or steaks, you might line them all up and do Tex-Mex, and then the next one is Montreal steak spice seasoning. Whatever, it saves that extra step. Just, there's something about the mental, like knowing that step is done, that just makes cooking just a little bit easier. So if you found this video helpful, I have a favor to ask of you. I'd love you to share it on your feed, because chances are, if you're cooking for one, you probably know somebody else that might be cooking for one that could benefit from some of the healthy eating strategies that we're talking about today. And if you like a little bit more information, you can, of course, click over to the link I've left associated with this video, and that's going to go through all of the strategies that I just went through on the video, as well as I'm linking over there to a free healthy breakfast ebook, which you can also download just for a few more ideas on the breakfast department, because I know we talked mostly about supper planning on this video. So I'm Andrea Hallwegner, registered dietitian at Health Stand Nutrition, CEO here. I'm surrounded by a fantastic team of dietitians, all with unique areas of specialty. So if you need any assistance for a goal, a health concern, or meal planning for a family or cooking for one, whatever you might need help with, I'd love you to reach out to us. We can book a time to speak and talk a little bit about your goals, and I can fit you with the best person on our team here that I think has the goals and maybe even sometimes the personality that's going to fit with what you might need. So thank you so much for watching my video. Again, share it in your feed there, and we'll see you next week on my next video. I'm going to be talking about recovery nutrition for fitness enthusiasts. We're getting into sport nutrition season for recreational fun runs and triathlon and these sorts of things. So if you're someone that likes training in the gym, or you're training in a particular sport, or you've got a 10K coming up, love to share with you some of the most important meal planning tips you need to think about in recovery nutrition. So that's next Wednesday, same time, same place, and signing off for now. So thanks for watching, everybody.